Young Chen traveled through the world of archery only to discover it at the age of 20. What's even more surprising is that his young family's marksmanship, which he has been practicing for over a decade, has reached an incredible level. So, the great song gun god emerged out of nowhere. Yang Chen. What are the 18 dragons subduing palms and one young finger? What toad skill, the 9 manual? What kind of finger flicking magic, left and right fighting each other? None of them are as good as my young family's marksmanship. In the heavens, there is a system, but the presence of the system is extremely low. Keywords of the novel. With the young family's marksmanship, I pierce through the world of martial arts without a pop-up window. With the young family's marksmanship, I pierce through the world of martial arts. Download the complete text. With the young family's marksmanship, I pierce through the latest chapters of the world of martial arts. Chapter 1. Broken Temple, Girl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Broken Temple, Girl. On the mid-moon, black magpies return to their nests. Is there anyone inside? Can I come in and stay for one night? A crisp voice rang out in front of the dilapidated temple, and when no one answered inside, he continued, if you don't speak, I'll just assume you agreed. Inside the temple, Yang Chen was holding a branch and stirring a fire when he saw a young girl dressed in white and with long hair draped over her shoulders walking in. This woman is only 15 or 16 years old, with skin that surpasses snow, incredibly beautiful, and a stunning complexion that cannot be forced into view. Even Yang Chen, who knew the beauty of the world, couldn't help but stare blankly. The girl spat lightly and said softly, "Dang Tuzi." Yang Chen suddenly regained his senses, arched his hand and said, "It's impolite." Then he turned his head and stopped looking at her. The girl ignored him and asked herself, "I just called you, why did you ignore me?" Yang Chen explained, "I don't own this temple. Anyone can come in. If you want to come in, you can come in without my permission." The girl nodded and said, "You're right, but you made this fire. Can I sit over and bake it? It's autumn now, and it's night again. When the north wind blows, there is indeed a slight chill." So Yang Chen said, "Of course you can." After speaking, he also moved aside and gave up the area near the fire to the girl. The girl didn't speak, but suddenly looked at Yang Chen's appearance. Tall stature, fair skin, and handsome appearance. But he was wearing linen clothes, so he probably didn't come from a wealthy family. Next to it is an iron gun, a bow, and a bag of arrows. Is it a hunter? The girl guessed in her heart, but this hunter looks pretty good. She was not shy either, and sat down beside Yang Chen in a grand manner, reaching out her delicate jade hand to approach the flames. "You are." The girl was about to ask Yang Chen's identity when footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. The two of them coincidentally looked at the door and saw 4 beggars walking in with their heads and chests high. The leader saw that there were already 2 people inside, so he arched his hand and said, "So there are people inside." "Excuse me, the beggar is resting here for the night." The 3 beggars behind each said, "Excuse me." Yang Chen filled the fire with a few pieces of wood and said, "We're not the owners of this place either. Just be free with a few of you." The 4 of them sat down in the other corner of the temple and gathered branches to prepare a fire. The beggar led by him walked up to Yang Chen with a smile and said, "Little brother, borrow a fire." Yang Chen saw them collecting branches and guessed that they might come to borrow a fire, so he had already prepared a burning torch. As soon as the other party spoke, Yang Chen handed the branch over. The beggar didn't expect Yang Chen to be ready long ago and unexpectedly took the torch. "I'm Li Er from the beggar's sect, thank you on behalf of my brothers." Yang Chen waved his hand and said, "You don't need to thank me. Meeting by chance is also fate, and besides, it's not difficult." Li Er nodded, ready to turn his head back, but with a glance, he could see the girl sitting next to him clearly. He immediately froze in place, as if he was also attracted by her appearance. Because it was at night, and the girl kept facing a few people sideways, they didn't see the girl's face clearly just now. He stuttered and asked, Is this your wife, little brother? Looking at his stuttering appearance, the girl burst out laughing. With this smile, her stunning appearance brightened by 3 points. Li Er said in a daze, what a fairy descended to earth. Yang Chen said calmly, no, she's just a passerby like you. Ah. Li Er didn't understand Yang Chen's words and quickly realized that he was answering his previous question. Then he nodded repeatedly and kept saying, it should be so, it should be so. After all, such a fairy is truly unmatched in the world. Li Er spoke while retreating to the side of the 3 brothers, and then spoke softly. The girl chuckled and asked Yang Chen, is there anything to eat? I'm a bit hungry. Yang Chen glanced at the girl and saw that there was no abnormality in her eyes, knowing that she was really asking for what she wanted to eat. So he took 2 mantou from his package and handed them to him. The girl took a mantou, squeezed a small piece and slowly put it into her mouth. She chewed a few mouthfuls before swallowing it. Then he frowned a pair of beautiful eyebrows and said, it's not delicious. The mantou is cold, hard and dry. Yang Chen took out a smooth branch from the side, passed through the mantou left in his hand, and then stretched it onto the fire. The girl blinked her bright eyes and curiously watched Yang Chen's movements. After a long time, Yang Chen put mantou in front of the girl, try it. The girl was ready to reach for mantou, but she forgot that it was just taken from the fire. She quickly withdrew her right hand and rubbed it with her fingers on her ear. Haha. Yang Chen couldn't help but chuckle as he looked at her. Why are you laughing? The girl asked Yang Chen discontentedly, and then grabbed the mantou with branches. She carefully pinched a piece of mantou and tasted it. When she found that it was unexpectedly good, she squinted with satisfaction. Soon, the mantou was eaten little by the girl. She imitated the appearance of Yang Chen and passed the branches through another mantou. Suddenly, she asked Yang Chen, don't you want to eat? Yang Chen shook his head and said, I've tried it before. You can eat it alone. The girl nodded and put the mantou on the fire. When she finished the second mantou, it was late at night, so Yang Chen added some crude firewood to the fire and slept against the wall. The other few people also lay down to rest, and only the crackling sound of firewood burning remained in this temple. The next day, Jinmu rose to the east and the sky regained its brightness. 6 people woke up one after another, and Li Er walked to Yang Chen with his 3 brothers to say goodbye. Little brother, we'll leave first for the beggars. See you next time we have a chance. Goodbye. Yang Chen also arched his hand and said. Hey, what's your name? The girl suddenly asked Yang Chen. Yang Chen said, Yang Chen. Yang Chen, the girl repeated, then said again, won't you ask my name? Yang Chen gave a bitter smile and said, do you know the name of Mississippi? My surname is Huang, the girl replied with a smile, but she didn't say her name. Without further questioning, Yang Chen arched his hand and said, so it's Miss Huang. Humph. The girl snorted lightly and then asked, where are you going? Linen. What are you doing in Linen? Linen is the capital city of the Song dynasty, so I want to go and see it. The girl looked disdainful and pouted, saying, what's beautiful about Linen? If it's the most prosperous place in the world, it's the capital of the Jin dynasty, not to mention Linen, the new capital of the Song dynasty. Even the old capital Bianliang is not as good. Yang Chen asked curiously, do you think you have any knowledge? No. The girl shook her head, but I just came out of Linen, and these are all what people say. Yang Chen shook his head and said, according to hearsay, one should not take it lightly. End of this chapter. 2, Chapter 2. Originally, this is the world of martial arts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Originally, this is the world of martial arts. The girl snorted lightly and said, believe it or not, my dad told me the same thing anyway. He wouldn't lie to me, would he? Yang Chen said, "Your father." "Who is your father?" The girl immediately held her head high and said proudly, "Huang Yaoshe, have you heard of it?" "Huang Yaoshe," Yang Chen nodded and said loudly, "Huang Yaoshe." The girl seemed frightened by Yang Chen's voice, took 2 steps back, and carefully asked, "Yes, why are you so loud?" Yang Chen ignored the girl's doubts and continued to ask, "Your father is Huang Yaoshe, so you are Huang Rong?" "Girl, no," Huang Rong nodded and said, "Yes, I am Huang Rong." "No, how do you know my name is Huang Rong?" Yang Chen explained, "You said it in your dream yesterday." "Is that right?" Huang Rong's face was full of suspicion. At this moment, Yang Chen had countless thoughts running wildly in his heart, and in the end, he came to the conclusion. So this is the world of the legend of the Condor heroes. Undoubtedly, Yang Chen is a traveler, but he traveled earlier and it was through a tire. Although there were cheats around him, for so many years he thought he had only traveled to the southern Song dynasty, and only today did he realize that it was actually the world of archery. But we can't blame him for this, because his system is really too simple. Host. Yang Chen age. 20 talent. Natural divine power skills. Yang family shooting technique. LV11 archery. LV5, this is his current system panel. From these few dozen words, who can tell that this is the system of the martial arts world? No, there's another question. Yang Chen suddenly remembered something that his father, Yang Ming, had once said. That happened when Yang Chen was taught the Yang family marksmanship, and at that time Yang Chen asked if he was practicing the real Yang family marksmanship. Yang Ming told him that this shooting technique was passed down by Yang Zixing, and even he himself was Yang Zixing's great-grandson. However, later on, his family declined and he encountered war. Yang Ming was separated from his family and later left behind old injuries. He passed away 8 years ago due to illness. Yang Ming also mentioned that he has a younger brother, but did not mention the name of that brother. Now, Yang Chen feels that the lost younger brother may be Yang Tixin. Huang Rong on the side didn't know that Yang Chen had 1,000 thoughts in his heart, but as she watched his face constantly change, a little strange, she asked. "What's wrong with you?" With this question, she woke Yang Chen up. "It's okay," Yang Chen shook his head after a pause, he continued, "By the way, are you going north?" Huang Rong nodded and said, "Yes, what's wrong?" After thinking for a moment, "I think you're right, so I'm planning to go to Jingguizhong and take a look, where I can accompany you." "Ah." Huang Rong was a bit surprised. Although he was still very determined to go to Linen, why did he change his mind now? But after all, they were all what she said, and they were even more prosperous than Linen, making it difficult to refuse. She could only nod and respond. "That's perfect. We can go together, and I'm also planning to go to Zhongdu." Yang Chen said, "Then let me tidy up and we'll set off. First, extinguish the fire that started last night and cover it with soil. Then pick up your own equipment, an iron gun, a long bow, and arrows." Huang Rong looked at Yang Chen carrying an arrow, a bow, and a gun, and then asked, "Are you a hunter?" Yang Chen nodded and said, "Yeah. Isn't it like that?" Huang Rong shook her head and spoke in a somewhat disappointed tone, like, "It's because it's like me that I asked." Then she tentatively asked, "Have you ever practiced martial arts?" "Of course." Yang Chen casually thrust his gun forward with full force. "Yang's marksmanship, how is it?" "Amazing." Huang Rong said, but her eyes couldn't conceal her disappointment. Although the Yang family's marksmanship has a great reputation, it is not considered a powerful martial arts skill in her eyes. The martial arts created by these generals are very suitable for the battlefield, but their power is far inferior to the martial arts of ordinary sects in the martial arts world. More importantly, it is difficult to develop internal power with such external skills. Even if Yang Chen excels in the Yang family's marksmanship, he can barely be considered a second-rate expert in the martial arts world, still at the bottom. Putting aside her thoughts for the time being, Huang Rong and the others packed up before leaving the temple and heading north. This place is on the edge of Linan Prefecture, close to the edge of Jiankong Prefecture. Due to its distance from the two prefectures, it is sparsely populated. The two of them walked for half a day, and at the peak of the sun, they found a place to rest. "Is there anything to eat?" Huang Rong asked. "Mantu," Yang Chen said lightly. Huang Rong curled her mouth. "It's mantu again, isn't there anything else?" Yang Chen shook his head and said, "Mantu is a good way to take food when you are on the road." Then he took out 2 mantu and handed them to Huang Rong. But Huang Rong didn't want to eat cold mantu. She rolled her eyes and pointed at Yang Chen's bow. She said, "Aren't you a hunter? Why don't you hunt some birds and animals to eat? Are you not good at archery and afraid of returning empty-handed? You don't need to provoke me either. There's no stove or seasoning here. Even if I bring in prey, with my cooking skills, it's just a waste of food." Huang Rong stomped her feet and said angrily, "If you didn't tell me earlier, I'm good at cooking. Hurry up and go hunting." Yang Chen also woke up from a dream. How could he forget such an important thing? Huang Rong is a skilled cook, and Hong Qigong only passed on the 18 dragon subduing palms to that foolish Gaigua Jing after eating the dishes made by Huang Rong. So he quickly stood up, picked up his strong bow, drew 2 arrows from his quiver, and looked up at the sky. This hard bow was left to him by his father. It is a rare and powerful bow that requires over 200 pounds of force just to reach full moon. At this moment, 2 young chickens flew over from the sky. Yang Chen immediately bent his bow and set up an arrow. He moved his left arm slightly and aimed at one of them. His 5 fingers on his right hand relaxed, revealing that the bow was curved like a full moon, and the arrow went like a shooting star. With a whoosh, the flying arrow was like an electric shock, piercing into the body of a young chicken. This was not over yet. Yang Chen bent his bow and drew an arrow again. With a movement of his arm, another arrow flew out and hit another young chicken. "Okay." Huang Rong immediately shouted with a smile as she watched Yang Chen shoot 2 arrows in a row, hitting the target. "Good archery." Yang Chen strode towards the spot where the wild chicken had fallen, and soon ran back with 2 arrows, each wearing a young chicken. Huang Rong took the prey and then used the ame steel from somewhere to pierce the belly of the young chicken. She washed and peeled off the internal organs, but did not pluck the feathers. She wrapped the chicken with water and a ball of mud, and started grilling it. Roasted for a while, the mud exuded a sweet aroma, and it was left wet and dry. After peeling off the dry mud, the chicken feathers fell with the mud, and the chicken was white and tender, with a strong aroma. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Severing Fingers as Punishments. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Severing Fingers as Punishments. Huang Rong was about to hand a roasted chicken to Yang Chen when she suddenly heard a person nearby saying, "It smells so delicious." Yang Chen was taken aback and said, "Sleeping in bed, what a familiar scene. It's none other than Hong Qigong, the old man from the North Beggar." Turning his head, he suddenly felt disappointed. He was a good beggar, but not Hong Qigong. This person is in his 30s and 40s, with a short and thin figure that looks a bit sleazy. He carries 8 burlap bags on his back and a bamboo stick in his hand. He is most likely an 8-bag disciple of the beggar's sect. Huang Rong asked, "Who are you?" The beggar arched his hand and said, "I, Feng Xiang, am a disciple of the beggar's sect with 8 bags. Yang Chen arched his hand and said, "I used to be a disciple of the beggar's sect. I have admired him for a long time." Huang Rong learned from Yang Chen's appearance and arched her hand, saying, "I used to be a disciple of the beggar's sect, I've heard so much about it." Yang Chen looked at Huang Rong's parrot learning to speak, and suddenly felt amused, chuckling loudly. Huang Rong felt a bit shy when she saw Yang Chen laughing, so she gave Yang Chen a blank glance and said, "Why smile?" Yang Chen was not angry either, turned his head to look at Feng Xiang, and tore off half of the roasted chicken in his hand and handed it over. "Meeting is fate, let's taste it together." Feng Xiang first took it over and then said, "You're right, young brother. It's indeed a bit of fate. Coincidentally, my home is nearby. Would you like to come and have a look?" As soon as these words were spoken, Yang Chen and Huang Rong suddenly realized that something was wrong. The beggar didn't seem to pass by, but rather seemed to have come after him on purpose. Yang Chen suddenly said a name, Li Er. Feng Xiang was taken aback for a moment, then nodded and said, "Since you guessed everything, I won't cover it up. I just want to invite this girl to my house as a guest. As for you, little brother, you can leave now." "No way. Dreaming." At the front, Yang Chen shook his head and refused, while at the back, Huang Rong angrily cursed. Just a few words from Feng Xiang indicate that he is here to snatch people, and it is highly likely that he has taken a liking to Huang Rong's appearance. Feng Xiang didn't care about their attitude because a hunter and a delicate young lady couldn't resist him at all. His face turned cold and he said lightly, "Little brother, do you want to be enemies with our beggars' sect?" Yang Chen disdainfully said, "The beggars' sect? Is the beggars' sect teaching you to forcibly rob women from good families in broad daylight and under the clear sky?" Feng Xiang laughed back angrily, "Are you looking for death?" Yang Chen reached out and grabbed the iron gun beside him, saying, "It shouldn't be seeking death." Watching Yang Chen's movements, Feng Xiang smiled and said, "It turns out you are a practitioner. But as a hunter, what advanced martial arts skills can you have to dare to be our beggars' sect enemy? Well, let me show you the strength of our beggars' sect, so as not to offend others in the future." He never took Yang Chen seriously. After all, there is no sect in the martial arts world that is skilled in using guns. The beggars' sect is the largest sect in the world, and Feng Xiang's ability to become a disciple of the beggars' sect with 8 bags is naturally due to his outstanding qualities, with good martial arts being one of them. As he spoke, he raised his bamboo stick and hit Yang Chen. "Be careful." Huang Rong quickly spoke up to remind him, after all, in his view, Yang Chen is just a hunter and should be an 8-bag disciple who cannot resist the beggars' sect. Unexpectedly, Yang Chen did not dodge, and even Feng Xiang stabbed him with a stick. There was no response. But in Feng Xiang's eyes, he didn't react. He had a fierce smile on his face and secretly increased his strength in his hands. Pushi, with only a loud sound, Feng Xiang's bamboo stick split open in the middle and flew out into several petals, with the tip of the gun shining cold light straight against his throat. Gudong. Feng Xiang struggled to swallow his saliva, his body not daring to move, and all his eyes focused on the tip of the gun. After a while, he woke up and immediately begged for mercy, saying, "Good man, spare your life." Of course, his body still dared not make any movement. On the side, Huang Rong also held the Fenshuame thorn in her hand and stood there dumbfounded, watching the scene before her. Just now, she only saw a cold light flash by, and then the bamboo stick split apart, and the tip of the gun pointed to Feng Xiang's throat. "I'll ask you a question. If you dare to say one more word, you don't need me to say more about the consequences. Who asked you to come?" "No one. I heard from Li Er that he met an extremely beautiful woman, so he chased after her on his own." Yang Chen asked again, "How do you know we're going this way?" Feng Xiang held his head high and slowly retreated, but Yang Chen's gun remained against his neck. He swallowed his saliva and said, "Li Er said that the woman was dressed cleanly and neatly, but there were no attendants around her. I guessed it might be a wealthy young lady running out of Linen City, so she should be running outside Linen Prefecture, so she caught up from behind. What do you want to do after me? To be honest, my gun wouldn't be as lenient as mine. I want to take this young lady back and see her off." "To whom? And why give it to him?" "Elder Peng of the beggars' sect, I heard he likes women, and it's really nice to hear Li Er say that he met a beautiful woman, which moved his mind. Yang Chen nodded and said, I see. Are you from the clean clothes sect? Feng Xiang was a bit surprised. Yang Chen actually knew that the beggars sect had a distinction between the clean clothes sect and the dirty clothes sect. However, he honestly replied, I am from the dirty clothes sect. Yang Chen frowned and said, Are you from the dirty clothes faction? But how could the dirty clothes sect think of giving gifts to the elders of the clean clothes sect? Are you trying to join the clean clothes sect? Feng Xiang felt a bit ashamed at this moment. He nodded and said, The rules of the dirty clothes sect are strict, and life is not easy either. I just wanted to change my family and join the clean clothes sect. After clarifying the matter, Yang Chen withdrew his iron gun and said, Get lost. Having escaped the danger, Feng Xiang was very grateful and bowed repeatedly apologizing, Thank you very much, little brother. I have a large number. Goodbye, little one. Unexpectedly, Huang Rong suddenly spoke up, Wait. Feng Xiang didn't know that Huang Rong also knew martial arts, but because she was taken care of by Yang Chen, he didn't dare to underestimate her. So he smiled apologetically and asked, Miss, what else is there? Huang Rong smiled and asked, You just had an idea for me, let's just forget about it now. Feng Xiang said urgently, Miss, I knew my mistake. I won't dare to do it again in the future. Please spare my life. While begging for mercy, he looked at Yang Chen with a pleading gaze, because he felt that Yang Chen was a soft-hearted person. Huang Rong said to herself, If you make a mistake, you must be punished. This is a truth that even children know. Why don't you know? Feng Xiang quickly asked, Miss, how would you like to be punished? Cut the mute and stab the deaf as punishment. Hiss. Feng Xiang took a cold breath and didn't expect the punishment spoken by this beautiful girl to be so cruel. If he were deaf and mute, wouldn't he become a useless person? He didn't know, Huang Rong grew up on Peach Blossom Island, and the mute servant on Peach Blossom Island was the notorious villain captured by the eastern evil Huang Yaoshi on the island, who was then cut off and stabbed deaf to serve as a slave. Miss, spare your life. He first begged for mercy from Huang Rong, then turned to Yang Chen and said, Young Xia, spare your life. Huang Rongqi said, I won't harm your life, why spare your life? Yang Chen stood up and said, The punishment for being deaf and mute is indeed too severe. Although someone has committed evil deeds, they have not succeeded, and there is no need for such a severe punishment. Thank you very much, Young Xia. Feng Xiang hurriedly said, Even the title has changed. I was just a little brother, but now I have become a Young Xia. Yang Chen changed his tone and said, However, even a small punishment is unavoidable. How to punish me, Young Xia, please speak clearly. Feng Xiang bowed and said, almost kneeling down for Yang Chen. I heard that the leader of your gang, Hong Lao, once made a mistake when he was young. Just cut off one finger as a sign of punishment. If you also made a mistake today, then cut off one finger too. Sure. Huang Rong didn't have any objections. Broken finger. Although this punishment may not be as light as cutting the mute and stabbing the deaf, it cannot be considered light. However, if Feng Xiang does not accept it, he will not be able to leave. Feng Xiang hesitated for several times before finally gritting his teeth and gripping his left little thumb, then forcefully breaking it off. With a click, accompanied by Feng Xiang's screams, a finger with blood at the end was displayed by him in front of Yang Chen and Huang Rong, and then he turned around and left in a disheveled manner. Suddenly, Yang Chen said to Huang Rong leisurely, After all, the beggars sect is the largest gang in the world. We don't have strong evidence, but if the punishment is severe, trouble keeps coming. Is the beggars sect unreasonable? Perhaps it's said, maybe it's not said, but who knows? End of this chapter. 4, Chapter 4, Section 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Zhongdu when Feng Xiang, who had broken his finger, left, Huang Rong couldn't wait to ask, "Aren't you a hunter? Why are you so skilled in martial arts? And what kind of martial arts are you?" Yang Chen replied, "Didn't I mention it before? I am practicing the Yang family's marksmanship, a skill passed down from family." Huang Rong looked puzzled and said, "Yang's marksmanship? It's not like that. You probably used this marksmanship to develop your internal strength, right? Dongxie Huang Yaoshi is proficient in astronomy and geography, as well as the 5 elements and 8 trigrams, Qi Men Dun Jia, Qin, chess, calligraphy, and painting. He is even proficient in agricultural water conservancy, economic strategy, and military strategy." Huang Rong, as his daughter, was raised by him from a young age and naturally taught a lot by him. She remembers clearly that her father once said, "There are 2 types of martial arts in the martial arts world. Internal and external. External skills can stimulate qi, while internal skills can nourish internal energy. In most cases, internal skills are superior to external skills, so there are many foreign experts in the martial arts world who cannot obtain an internal skill. Of course, it's not that external skills cannot produce internal strength, it's just that it's very difficult, and the efficiency is extremely poor, unless it's the top-level external skills. It is even more difficult to become a master with martial arts like the Yang family gun, which cannot even be considered top-notch in external skills." Yang Chen said vaguely, "Perhaps my talent is quite high, so I have a gun that is more suitable for the Yang family. That's why my marksmanship is so powerful." In fact, there is a reason why Yang Chen's marksmanship is so powerful, mainly due to the function of that system. In the display of the system panel, there is an asterisk in front of Yang's marksmanship, which means that this skill has no upper limit. However, Yang Chen can only choose one skill to upgrade infinitely. The original Yang family's marksmanship limit was level 5, but Yang Chen has already risen to level 11. Yang Chen had already developed internal power when he was promoted to level 5, but he didn't know he was in the martial arts world at that time, so he didn't know that it was internal power. Huang Rong said with some admiration, "I heard my father say that people who want to use external skills to cultivate internal strength need both talent and effort. You spent a lot of time, right?" Yang Chen said, "Is everything okay? I'm 7 years old and have been practicing shooting for 13 years now." He only said that he had practiced for 13 years, and did not say how long it took him to develop his internal strength. It should be too shocking. You should know that Yang Chen practiced martial arts at the age of 5, practiced marksmanship at the age of 7, broke through level 5 with his marksmanship at the age of 12, which means he developed his internal power, and broke through level 10 with his marksmanship at the age of 17. This speed can be said to be cheating, but later it took 2.5 years to break through level 11. This is also the reason why Yang Chen left home for a trip. Breakthroughs are too difficult and time-consuming, and the key is that there is no progress bar yet. Otherwise, he would rather stay at home and become the great song gun god. After passing through this, the two did not stop but continued northward. First, cross the Yangtze River, then enter Shandong from Shuzhou, then reach Hebei, and finally reach Zhongdu. Zhongdu was originally Nanjing, the capital of the Liao dynasty, and later became the capital of the Jin dynasty. It has been in operation for many years and has long become a bustling place in the world. In the city where I entered, I saw the red chamber painting pavilion, embroidered households with vermilion doors, carved chariots racing, and horses racing. High cabinets and huge shops, displaying all kinds of strange goods and foreign objects, a tea house and a wine shop, but seeing the splendid attire and pearl shoes. The road is filled with flowers, and the sound of flute and drum fills the air, the golden sun shines brightly, and the fragrance of luo qi wafts. If it were a typical teenager who had never seen the world before, he would probably be dazzled by it. But after all, Yang Chen came through time travel. The towering buildings of his past life, brightly lit, had already been deeply ingrained, and he wouldn't be surprised by it. And Huang Rong has also experienced the prosperity of linen. Although Zhongdu is better than linen, it is not much better. Yang Chen's visit to Zhongdu naturally had a purpose. Based on Huang Rong's whereabouts, it can be roughly inferred that this should be when Guo Jing first left the grassland. So he came to Zhongdu, first to find Yang Tiexin and figure out if they were uncles and nephews, and second to have a face-to-face encounter with the protagonist Guo Jing. In this world, the butterfly effect brought by Yang Chen has begun to take shape. According to the original work, Huang Rong should have been playing in the Jin dynasty disguised as a little beggar, and coincidentally met Guo Jing in Zhangjiago. But now, Huang Rong did not pretend to be a little beggar, nor did she go to Zhangjiago. Instead, she came directly to Zhongdu through Hebei. The two of them chose a magnificent restaurant in Zhongdu city, and sat down in a window seat. If it had been the previous two, they probably wouldn't have been able to afford such a big restaurant, but because they encountered bandits when they arrived, their wallets would have bulged. Huang Rong said to the waiter who walked by, "Hey buddy, first come 4 dried fruits, 4 fresh fruits, 2 salty and sour fruits, and 4 preserved fruits." The shop assistant unexpectedly glanced at the two of them. Those who could usually afford to order these fruit candies were mostly wealthy. All the waiters and runners in the hotel are somewhat discerning. He looked at these two people, and the woman's clothes looked good and her temperament was not bad. As for the man next to her, his appearance was not mentioned, but his attire was quite ordinary. It should be a wealthy lady who came out to play with the guards. So the waiter smiled and said, "Okay, what else would you like, sir?" Huang Rong smiled and said, "Serve 8 more signature dishes from your restaurant." Then he looked at Yang Chen again and said, "Do you want to add any more dishes?" Yang Chen shook his head and said, "No need, there are already many of these." Huang Rong waved her hand and said, "That's it, go prepare quickly." The shop assistant nodded repeatedly and said, "Please wait a moment, sir. We'll go prepare now." After that, he turned around and left, going to the kitchen to explain. Huang Rong said to Yang Chen, "I haven't had any good food on my way these days. After finally arriving in Zhongdu, I must eat something good." Well, Yang Chen nodded in agreement. He lived in his hometown's mountain village for 20 years, and now that he has arrived in the capital city of Jin dynasty, he naturally wants to enjoy it well. It is truly a grand restaurant in Zhongdu, and the speed of serving is fast. In no time, fruits, candies, and other items were brought to the table one by one, and Yang Chen tasted them one by one. The taste was very good. However, in half an hour, the table was filled with wine and vegetables. Although Huang Rong ordered so many wine and vegetables, she ate very little. Most of the dishes were only tasted lightly, and some were not even touched. On the other hand, Yang Chen is different. He doesn't refuse anything, basically all the dishes are in his mouth. Huang Rong watched Yang Chen wolf down his food and couldn't help but ask, "Do you want to add more?" Yang Chen said, "No need, these are enough for me to eat." After dinner, they didn't leave in a hurry. Huang Rong asked the waiter to serve 4 plates of exquisite dim sum and a pot of longjing, and they talked everywhere again. Mainly Huang Rong said that Yang Chen is listening. When she talks about the customs and anecdotes she has encountered, Yang Chen always smiles in agreement. Suddenly, Huang Rong changed her tone and asked, "I see that you didn't stop much on your way to Zhongdu. Are you here for anything?" Originally, on their way to Zhongdu, Yang Chen appeared very anxious, often entering the city the night before and leaving early the next morning. Huang Rong guessed that Yang Chen might have something urgent, so she didn't ask much. It wasn't until she arrived at the destination that she finally asked. After a moment of silence, Yang Chen said, "There are indeed some things." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Midtown Tour. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Midtown Tour. Huang Rong looked at Yang Chen with an expectant expression, waiting for him to continue speaking, but Yang Chen ignored her gaze and picked up a teacup to take a sip, then stopped talking. Yang Chen has something to do, but it's not easy to talk to Huang Rong. What do you say? He said he knew that relatives would come to Zhongdu, so he came here to find him. Or do you say you're here to see a silly kid from the grassland? The causes and consequences of these things are inexplicable, so it's better not to mention them. As Yang Chen dodged his question, Huang Rong also understood his meaning, so she stopped asking and continued to talk about the interesting things she had encountered. After finishing all the pastries, Yang Chen took out an ingot of gold from his package and placed it on the table. "Waiter, there's no need to look for it," he said. "Although the consumption in Beijing is high, there is indeed a lot of gold per ingot." The shopkeeper couldn't help but smile and say, "Thank you for the official reward." It was already afternoon when they left the restaurant, so the two of them found an inn to stay. The next morning. "Yang Chen, are you there?" Huang Rong arrived outside Yang Chen's room and knocked on the door, but there was no response for a while. "Haven't you woken up yet?" Huang Rong muttered to herself, then increased her knocking force, but still no one answered. Just then, a waiter walked past and asked Huang Rong, "Miss, are you looking for the guest inside?" "Yeah." "Have you seen him?" The shopkeeper replied, "I think I saw him go to the backyard before." "Is it in the backyard?" Huang Rong nodded, put down her knocking hand, and then turned down the stairs. As soon as Huang Rong walked into the backyard of the inn, she heard the sound of boxing. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be Yang Chen practicing. Yang Chen's boxing style is different from what Huang Rong knows. Even if the general boxing style is based on strength, there will be short combat moves at close range, and it is both offensive and defensive. But Yang Chen's fist techniques are wide open and wide closed, with a balance of strength and strength, and there are moves that move forward but not retreat, attacks but not defense, and real but not empty. As the daughter of one of the five wonders, Dongxie, in Huang Rong's opinion, this boxing technique is not very effective. Of course, it's not entirely useless, at least it's full of ornamental value, especially when Yang Chen uses it. The fist moves with ease like a wandering dragon. If someone who is not skilled in martial arts sees it, they will definitely think it's a top-notch fist technique. In fact, when Huang Rong came, Yang Chen's practice was nearing its end, so it wasn't long before he closed his fists and stood up. Good. Good martial arts. Huang Rong applauded and cheered against her heart. After all, being born as a hunter, it is difficult to learn any good martial arts, Huang Rong said in her heart. Unexpectedly, Yang Chen walked up to Huang Rong and corrected, "This is not boxing, but shooting." Ah. Huang Rong's face seemed to have a big question mark written on it. Yang Chen explained, "This place is too small for me to use a gun, so I'll use my fist instead of a gun." It seemed that he knew what Huang Rong was thinking, and he continued, "The Yang family spear is a battlefield combat technique, so it is simple and direct, using real moves. This is the pursuit of power and efficiency, abandoning the changes of virtual and real. So it's like this." Huang Rong nodded with a hint of enlightenment, as his father and she had not mentioned so much detail when evaluating martial arts before. "What can I do for you?" Yang Chen asked. Huang Rong asked, "Are you free today? Do you want to go shopping together?" Naturally, Yang Chen came to China to find Yang Tiexin and Guojing, but before they arrived, he had to wait. Even if they came, he had to go out and look for them. Stay in the inn and expect them to come to his door. So Yang Chen said, "If there's nothing to do, let's go out and take a look together. It's a good time to see the prosperity of the central city." As soon as she said goodbye, Huang Rong immediately pulled Yang Chen out of the inn. After leaving the inn and not taking a few steps, the bustling morning market appeared before the two of them. Coincidentally, the two of them had never had breakfast before, so they went to a crowded shop and ordered 2 bowls of hot noodles to enjoy. Eating too early, Huang Rong went to the ready-to-wear shop with Yang Chen. "Your clothes are really worn out, they should have been changed long ago, Huang Rong said. Young Chen stood there, allowing Huang Rong to hold clothes and gesture left and right, quickly selecting a set of clothes that satisfied Huang Rong. Put it on. Huang Rong threw the clothes to Yang Chen and pointed to the curtain standing in the clothing shop, which gave Yang Chen an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Not long after, a graceful young master dressed in a moonlight white robe walked out from behind the curtain, which surprised even Huang Rong. Although she knew that Yang Chen had a good appearance, she couldn't believe that two types of clothing could make him look like a different person. Not bad, how much does this clothing cost? We'll buy it. Huang Rong turned to the shop owner's wife and said. The landlady smiled and said, the clothes on this young master's body are all made of high-quality materials. This set costs 3 taels of silver. This set of clothes is not enough for washing, let's take another set. Huang Rong smiled and pointed to the black brocade robe hanging on the side. Just this set. The landlady's face lit up with a smile. This set is cheaper, only 2 taels of silver, for a total of 5 taels. Huang Rong said to Yang Chen, pay me. Yang Chen took out a money bag, took out 1 or 5 taels of silver from inside, and placed it on the counter. Young master, please wait. The landlady took off the set of clothes designated by Huang Rong, then wrapped it up and placed it on the counter. Do you still need to bring those clothes that have been changed? Huang Rongdao said, those clothes, as well as this set of clothes, have all been delivered to the Uli Inn. They are said to belong to young master Yang Chen, and we will go and pick them up later. Okay, I'll have someone deliver it later. After the two of them left the clothing store, Huang Rong walked in front and Yang Chen was at the back, but Huang Rong occasionally turned around to look at Yang Chen. Finally, Yang Chen couldn't help but say, why do you always look at me? Huang Rong smiled and said, don't worry, your clothes are really pretty. Undoubtedly the daughter of Dongxia, she can speak such words without any hesitation. Seeing that Yang Chen did not respond, Huang Rong continued, don't wear the clothes you wore before in the future, they don't look good. Yang Chen pointed to the west and said, let's go over there and take a look. Sure, Huang Rong nodded and headed towards the direction pointed by Yang Chen. If Yang Chen remembers correctly, Guo Jing came from the grassland, passed through Zhangjiago, entered Zhongdu, and then met Yang Tiexin and his daughter in a martial arts competition for marriage. So when Guo Jing came, it was highly likely that he would come in through the west gate, so Yang Chen intentionally guided him towards the XC area. Of course, he did not expect to encounter Guo Jing, just to try his luck. As expected by Yang Chen, both of them wandered around the center for a whole day and did not find any lively competition for marriage. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Martial Arts Competition for Marriage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Martial Arts Competition and Marriage Recruitment. After staying in Zhongdu for a few days, Yang Chen achieved nothing, but he did not give up and continued to eat, drink, and play with Huang Rong in the city all day. Until an afternoon half a month later, the two had just had lunch at a restaurant. Suddenly, I could hear the voices of people in front of me, cheering incessantly. Looking from afar, there was a large group of people gathered around me, not knowing what they were looking at. Huang Rong turned her head to Yang Chen and said, there are so many people there. Let's go take a look too. Upon seeing this scene, Yang Chen guessed that it might be due to the outcome, so he said, let's go and join in the fun. As the two of them approached and separated from the people surrounding them in front, they saw the eldest in the middle of an empty space, with a banner planted underground. The banner had a white background and red flowers embroidered with the 4 golden characters, competition for marriage. A young girl in red and a middle-aged man stood under the banner. That's right, it's Yang Tiexin and Mu Nianxi, but now he should be called Mu Yi. Mu Yi made a square bow to the crowd and then explained the purpose of his father and daughter's visit, which was to prepare for a martial arts competition and marriage. After Mu Yi explained it, he waited for a while, but only heard some mischievous thugs in the crowd joking and criticizing the girl, but no one dared to take action. Before Yang Chen and the others arrived, someone had already come on stage to compete, and this girl's martial arts were not weak. Although there were many people around, there were not many who had good martial arts skills. After waiting for a long time without anyone coming on stage, Huang Rong tugged at Yang Chen's arm and said with a smile, "Why don't you try going up there? Anyway, that girl is also as beautiful as a flower, and you're not at a disadvantage." Yang Chen immediately pressed her arm and said, "Nonsense." Huang Rong smiled sweetly and said, "I'm afraid you're not worried about not being able to beat this girl." Yang Chen didn't say a word, but looked around and saw a young man dressed in a rustic way, with a sincere face and a dusty body standing in the crowd watching the excitement. I thought to myself, this should be Guo Jing. Mu Yi waited for a moment, but no one came to the scene to take action. The sky was low with lead clouds and the north wind was even stronger, like rain and snow. So he turned around and pulled up the flagpole, about to roll up the banner of martial arts competition and marriage. Suddenly, people on both sides of the crowd shouted, "Wait a minute." Then the two of them rushed into the circle together. Everyone couldn't help but burst into laughter when they saw it. Originally, the person who came in from the east was a fat old man with thick beards on his face and a mostly grayish beard, at least in his 50s. The person from the west is even more funny, he is actually a bald monk. The two of them ended up ridiculing each other and competing to compete with Mu Nianzi first, fearing that they would lose a beautiful woman if they were to compete later. This farce also caused everyone to burst into laughter. Seeing this, Mu Nianzi couldn't help but feel angry. Her eyebrows stood on end and she was ready to step forward and take action. Mu Yi grabbed his daughter and told her to calm down, then casually inserted the flagpole into the ground. Someone next to me was laughing and coaxing, "You guys, let's have a comparison first. Whoever wins will go." It goes without saying that even when they started fighting, the punches and kicks were not lively. The two of them were engaged in a fierce battle, and the monk was seen thrusting forward with a loud thud, punching the fat man 3 times in a row. The fat man snorted 3 times, enduring the pain but not avoiding it. His right fist was raised high, like a giant hammer, striking down on the monk's bald head. The monk couldn't resist and fell to the ground. Suddenly, he was furious and pulled out a sword to chop at the fat man. The fat man also refused to be outdone and drew out an iron whip to confront him. In the blink of an eye, the knives whipped back and forth fiercely, and the onlookers cheered loudly. They couldn't help but step back, afraid that the weapons would be blind and accidentally injure themselves. Mu Yi is just here for a martial arts competition to recruit relatives, and it's just a point-to-point approach. But now the two of them have already started a real fight, and they are afraid that one mistake will cause trouble, so they are ready to stop them. He walked up to the two of them and said loudly, "Stop it, both of you. This is the land of the capital, and you cannot wield knives or guns." But those two people have a close relationship, where would they pay attention to him? Mu Yi suddenly bullied himself and kicked the monk's sword away with his flying foot. He grabbed the head of the iron whip and pulled it away, but the fat man couldn't hold it and had to let go. Mu Yi threw his iron whip heavily to the ground, and the monk and the chubby man dared not speak much. They each picked up their weapons and plunged into the crowd, leaving. Cheers echoed around again. It turned out that the girl in red had excellent martial arts skills, taught well by her father. She could be said to be a tiger father without a dog. Even Huang Rong whispered in Yang Chen's ear, "Uncle Mu's martial arts are also impressive." Mu Yi bowed to everyone and was about to say something when suddenly he heard the Luan bell ring and dozens of healthy servants galloping towards a young master. Those healthy servants are also very domineering, and when they see someone blocking the way, they directly use thorns to fight. This person is another person that Yang Chen acquired, Yang Kong, probably Yang Chen's cousin. Yang Kong saw the banner of martial arts competition for marriage and looked at Mu Nianzi a few times. With a slight smile, he dismounted and walked into the crowd, saying, is this the girl who competes for marriage? Mu Nianzi did not answer, but Mu Yi stepped forward and clenched his fists, saying, my surname is Mu. What do you think, young master? Yang Kong said, what are the rules for martial arts competitions and marriage ceremonies? Mu Yi repeated. Yang Kong said, then I'll give it a try. But Mu Yi was unwilling, because he could see that the young master was dressed in splendid attire and his subordinates were extremely domineering. Even if he was not a prince or nobleman, he was still a family of powerful officials, which was beyond the reach of a rash person like himself. Mu Yi said, father and daughter of the villain are people from the mountains and grasslands, and they dare not fight against the young master. Let's say goodbye. After all, Yang Kong had learned martial arts from Qiu Chuji, and with his excellent qualifications, he had a high regard for himself. When Mu Yi refused, he thought he was afraid of hurting his daughter. So he said, practice martial arts until the end. Don't worry, I will never hurt the girl who hurts you. Mu Yi didn't answer, just shook his head, and then pulled out the flag of the martial arts competition for marriage. Yang Kong saw that Mu Yi didn't respond and turned to Mu Nianzi, miss, just punch me and you'll be considered the winner, okay? Huang Rong saw this and said to Yang Chen, although this young master has a good appearance, he is not a good person. How do you say it? Yang Chen asked. Huang Rong explained, Uncle Mu has already rejected him, but he still refuses to let go and insists on a martial arts competition. Isn't he a lecherous person who admires Miss Mu's appearance? And when he comes, those servants whip passers-by with rattan sticks and judge the master with servants, indicating that their master is also a domineering person. Yang Chen nodded and patted her shoulder, saying solemnly, that makes sense. After finishing speaking, he walked into the field and said to Yang Kong, young master, since Uncle Mu is ready to leave, why are you so persistent? Isn't it a loss of gentlemanly demeanor? Yang Kong saw a small white face walking up to dissuade him, so he disdainfully said, who are you, meddling in my business? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Battle of Gua and Yang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Battle of Gua and Yang. As Yang Chen was about to answer, he saw another person darting out of the crowd and saying, it's his business if he wants to compete in martial arts. It's really not good for you to cross the line. This person is none other than Gua Jing, whom Yang Chen had previously identified. Originally, Gua Jing saw Yang Kang's handsome appearance and felt that it perfectly matched Mu Nianzi's, with only a difference in identity between the two. His simple mind naturally couldn't see through. Seeing someone talking to him, Yang Kong continued, they are competing for marriage, so I came. I am under 30 years old and unmarried, so I am also eligible. Why didn't they compete with me alone? Then with a sneer, he continued, if you poke your foot sideways, wouldn't it be that you have also taken a liking to this girl and want to argue with me? At this moment, Huang Rong couldn't sit still and walked up to point at Yang Kong, saying, what are you talking nonsense about? Then he said to Gua Jing, you kid can't even understand things. You're here to cause trouble. Gua Jing was puzzled and glanced at Mu Yi. He shook his head and finally understood. I made a mistake. It turns out that Uncle Mu doesn't want to compare anymore. And you're also wrong, young master. This young master already has such a beautiful wife, so he shouldn't be interested in that girl. Gua Jing's words can be said to be chaotic and fully demonstrate his awkwardness. Moreover, his praise of Huang Rong's disguised belittling of Mu Nianzi also fully demonstrates emotional intelligence. Mu Nianzi, a child of the martial arts world, naturally wouldn't care about this. As for Huang Rong, after all, this is a compliment to her, and she is still very receptive. Huang Rong smiled and said, silly kid, you're not completely blind. Yang Chen said, this is a martial arts competition for marriage. If young master really wins a move or two, will you really marry her? This question left Yang Kong speechless. He naturally had no intention of actually engaging in a martial arts competition for marriage, but just wanted to flirt with the beauty of this girl. But if I couldn't resist the sudden appearance of this stunned young man, wouldn't it be a loss of face for him? So he smiled and said, "Marriage matters are naturally up to my parents. If I win, I will first report to my parents and then marry her." What he didn't say was that if parents don't agree after reporting to them, there's nothing they can do. But young Chen did not fall into his language trap and instead said directly, "Since you can't marry her, why do you have to join in this fun?" With the young master's background, where is it not good to go for fun, but to find trouble with ordinary families? Yang Kong angrily said, "I have to join in the fun. What can you do?" After speaking, he stood up and slapped Yang Chen with his palm. In this moment, he became angry and used real kung fu. A sharp and intense palm wind shook Yang Chen's robe and made it flutter. With this move, everyone around was shocked and thought to themselves, "I can't tell that this person with an elegant appearance is so skilled in martial arts." Yang Chen remained calm and composed, swaying to his side. Yang Kang's sharp palm technique passed through his chest without touching anything. Before Yang Chen could even speak, Guo Jing urgently said, "Why are you such a person who doesn't even mention etiquette and just takes action?" Yang Kang scolded, "Mind your own business, you stupid kid." Then he turned around and punched Yang Chen on the shoulder. Yang Chen remained steadfast and evasive. Just before his fist hit him, he turned sideways and once again let Yang Kang hit him in the air. To outsiders, Yang Chen couldn't react to this, but he dodged the attack in a hurry. But Yang Kang, who was facing Yang Chen directly, knew that the other person's face was calm from beginning to end, and there was even a hint of disdain in his eyes. Guo Jing strode forward and stood in front of Yang Kang, saying, "Whatever you do, just take action. Can't you say something well?" Yang Kang grabbed the collar of the brocade robe with both hands, pulled it outwards, and the jade buckle on the brocade robe fell off 4 times before throwing it outward. Naturally, a servant came forward to catch it outside the venue. "I'm still going to fight today, so I'll hit you stupid kid first." After finishing speaking, he shook his body and quickly approached Guo Jing. His left palm was slanted with a single whip, and with a shout, he swung it towards his head. Guo Jing quickly raised his hand to block the grid, crossed his arms, and placed them on top of his head. But at this moment, his middle door opened wide, and Yang Kang took the opportunity to push his right palm horizontally on his chest, causing Guo Jing to feel a sharp pain in his chest. With this blow, Guo Jing lost his balance and was attacked several times by Yang Kang. In the end, he made a mistake and fell to the ground. Guo Jing remained silent as he adjusted his internal strength and applied it several times in his chest. The pain subsided, and then a carp stood up straight. He has been a stubborn person since childhood, manifested in competition, which is to fight with a fierce force. This was first seen in his childhood, and once he had a violent outburst, he never retreated. "Come again." Guo Jing whispered and rushed towards Yang Kang. Guo Jing punched him in the cheek with a punch, and Yang Kang dodged it. Guo Jing raised his forearm, bent his elbow, and forcefully smashed it down. Yang Kang quickly lifted his right hand to the upper left and pushed Guo Jing's elbow just above his shoulder. Without waiting for Yang Kang to launch a counterattack, Guo Jing kicked his feet in a series of Mandarin ducks, starting from left and falling from right, and then from left to right. Suddenly, he kicked 9 legs in a row. This is the unique life skill of his 3 masters, Ma Wang Shenhan Baoju. Although he has not fully mastered the essence of leg techniques, he cannot be underestimated. Yang Kang hurriedly intervened, pushing left and right, but only blocking the front 7 feet. The last 2 feet were kicked in the left and right crotch respectively. Although he has been practicing martial arts since childhood, Yang Kang has never suffered such a loss, causing pain in his left and right hips when kicked by Guo Jing. Immediately, with a fierce thrust, he reached out with both hands, bent his fingers into claws, and quickly grabbed onto Guo Jing's shoulders like lightning. This is not an ordinary scratch, but the 9-in white bone claw taught by his female master Mei Chaofeng. The move is fierce and painful, and once injured, it is unbearable. Yang Kang's sudden move caught Guo Jing off guard. As he saw his claws about to grab onto Guo Jing's shoulders, he saw one arm resting under Yang Kang's wrist, making it impossible for him to press down. The person who took the action was Yang Chen. He watched the battle from the side and saw that Guo Jing was about to be in danger, so he stepped forward to block a move for him. Yang Chen said to Yang Kang, "It's good to end the martial arts competition. Why see blood?" Then he lifted his arm and waved Yang Kang away. Yang Kang secretly exclaimed in his heart, "What great strength!" Just now, Guo and Yang clashed and repeatedly crossed positions, while Yang Kang was lifted and retreated to Mu Yi's side. He looked left and right, pulled out the flagpole of the brocade flag that Mu Yi had inserted on the ground, and removed the brocade flag. Then he used this flagpole as his gun, but did not attack Yang Chen. Instead, he thrust his gun towards Guo Jing's lower abdomen. Guo Jing quickly rolled away, while the young prince brushed his brush and fired 3 shots in a row, piercing towards him with an extremely skilled marksmanship. Guo Jing was stunned and couldn't jump out of the gun for a moment. He had to lie on his back, wanting to use his empty-handed technique to seize the weapon. However, Yang Kang shook the barrel of the gun, and the gun trembled and made a hissing sound. There was no chance to seize the weapon. Huang Rong approached Yang Chen and said, "Isn't this the Yang family shooting technique you often practice?" Yang Chen often practices marksmanship and occasionally uses real guns, so Huang Rong is also familiar with it. But Yang Chen shook his head and said, "It seems right but not right." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Return Gun. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Revoke Mu Yi was quite surprised in his heart. The young master used the Yang family's marksmanship techniques to stab, prick, lock, hold, plate, hit, sit, and collapse the flagpole in his hand. Although the marksmanship is agile, it is not a legitimate tradition passed down by the Yang family, but rather a secret learning. It is indeed specious, but how did he know? Could it be that he also knows the Yang family gun? Mu Yi thought to himself. As Mu Yi was preparing to pack up and leave, the sky had already changed. At this moment, as the wind tightened, snowflakes began to fall from the sky. On the other side, Yang Kang's sharp spears pointed repeatedly, forcing Guo Jing into a dangerous situation. Guo Jing looked around, looking for any useful weapons, but surrounded by people watching the excitement, there were no weapons. Only Mu Yi had an iron spear in his hand, which was originally inserted on the ground. However, after the fight between Guo and Yang, he held it in his hand. It was also for this reason that Yang Kang only pulled off the banner pole as a spear. Guo Jing retreated and shouted to Mu Yi, "Uncle Mu, use your spear." Mu Yi thought to himself, this little brother was originally speaking for his father and daughter, and was only entangled by this young master. Now, with empty hands against the spear, I naturally want to help. So, he threw the iron gun to Guo Jing. But Yang Kang had no idea of a fair confrontation. He lifted his long pole in the air and picked up the flying iron gun, then flew towards the other side. Yang Chen reached out and just caught the iron gun flying towards him. Huang Rong said to Yang Chen, "This young master is so shameless. He used his long soldiers to bully others with his short hands. Why don't you go help this foolish kid?" "That's good." Yang Chen nodded, and an idea floated in his mind, just enough to give it a try. "Be careful." He first spoke out as a reminder, then raised his gun and stabbed towards Yang Kang. At this point, Yang Kang had already suppressed Guo Jing's hiding range to only an inch, and as he was about to win, he didn't expect someone to attack from behind. So he quickly turned around, crossed the flagpole, and then pushed it again, blocking Yang Chen's iron gun. Of course, this was also the reason why Yang Chen did not exert all his strength. Guo Jing took a few steps back and got out of the range of the two's engagement, but he had no intention of coming forward to help Yang Chen. After all, it was not honorable to fight too much or too little. Yang Chen's iron gun was dancing wildly, with a flickering cold light, bringing up flying snow all over the sky. This momentum was more than a star and a half stronger than Yang Kong's. Faced with Yang Kong, Yang Chen also kept his hands on him everywhere, refusing to let go of gravity, but he also forced him to retreat repeatedly. But his marksmanship was no different from Yang Kang's, and there were some differences that the onlookers couldn't see, except for Mu Yi. Mu Yi was shocked in his heart and said, "This person also uses the Yang family gun, but it is the legitimate lineage. Where did he learn this?" The two of them fought each other, and in the blink of an eye, Yang Kong had already shown a complete defeat. Yang Chen finally raised his iron spear high, and a yellow dragon fell down and swung straight down. Yang Kong hastily had to hold his gun with both hands and block it above his head. Click, Yang Kang's flagpole snapped in response to the sound, his arms trembling as he fell down, and his hands couldn't even grasp the flagpole firmly. He looked at the mercilessly smashed iron gun with a shocked expression on his face, as it was about to fall into reality. He had to close his eyes tightly and wait for death. But in the end, only a gust of strong wind blew by, causing pain on Yang Kang's face. He opened his eyes and saw that the iron gun was about an inch above his head, but it did not fall. Looking down at Yang Chen, I happened to see him retrieve his long spear, only to realize that it was not someone who saved him, but that the other party was under temporary force and did not harm me. Yang Chen smiled and said, "Your marksmanship is not very good." Then he turned around and walked towards Mu Yi, as if to return the iron gun to him. "You!" Yang Kong pointed at Yang Chen as he was about to speak, but someone behind him shouted, "Bold, how dare you disrespect the little prince?" Before the words could be spoken, Yang Kong and his attendants strode out of a short man and raised their palms to attack Yang Chen. This person is Peng Lianhu, one of the 5 masters recruited by Wanyan Honglai. He is nicknamed Thousand-Handed Butcher in the martial arts world. Today, he followed Yang Kong out to protect his safety. But just now when Yang Kong and Guo Jing had a battle, the victory was already determined, but a Qing Yao Jin appeared and almost shot the young prince, which scared Peng Lianhu. Immediately taking action in anger was about to result in the sudden emergence of Qing Yao Jin. Yang Chen heard the sound of the wind behind him, so he turned his right hand holding the gun, and then held it with his left hand 5 inches away from the head of the gun. Before he could turn his head back, he poked a return shot. Although this shot was a late shot, Yang Chen did not hesitate and used his strength to the fullest. The iron gun's tail was straight on Peng Lianhu's palm. With a bang, the tail of the gun effortlessly counteracted Peng Lianhu's palm force, and then pushed his right palm onto his chest. With tremendous force, Peng Lianhu's chest was lowered and he flew out, smashing heavily at the healthy servants brought by Yang Kong. A burly Tibetan monk and an old man with white hair flew out of the crowd, each slapping Peng Lianhu on the back. With the joint efforts of the two, they also took 2 steps back in a row, leaving 4 deep footprints on the ground, which strengthened their strength to remove Peng Lianhu. Peng Lianhu spat out a big mouthful of blood heavily, then collapsed on the ground, obviously seriously injured. The two of them exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with astonishment and shock. Mu Yi's face also changed greatly, and he exclaimed in surprise, "Turn around." The Yang family's marksmanship is a battlefield martial art that has been widely circulated in the Song dynasty martial arts world, but these are not authentic marksmanships. The circulated versions not only have slight differences in their moves, but also lack the Yang family gun's unique skill of turning the horse gun. And the one Yang Chen used just now is the most authentic Yang family rifle. Even Mu Yi himself would not have used it better than Yang Chen. Mu Yi Gong was about to come forward and ask Yang Chen where he learned the Yang family's marksmanship when he heard a shout from the west. More than 10 soldiers, Han Jian, were holding vines and driving away passers-by. Everyone made way on both sides, and at the corner, 6 strong men came carrying a large golden embroidered sedan chair. Yang Kang's servants shouted one after another, "The queen is here." Yang Kong frowned and cursed, "It's troublesome. Who's going to report the queen?" The embroidered sedan chair was carried to the edge of the martial arts competition before stopping. A woman's voice inside the sedan could only be heard saying, "Why are you fighting with someone? In a snowy day, you're not wearing long clothes, you're turning back and feeling cold." Her voice was very gentle. Yang Kong walked forward and said in a low voice, "Mom, I just had a martial arts competition with someone, there's nothing wrong." The princess said, "Since there's nothing wrong, then quickly get dressed and let's go back together." The healthy servants quickly walked up and put on the brocade robe that Yang Kong had previously taken off. At this moment, Yang Kong was already feeling a sense of retreat because he knew he was not a match for Yang Chen, and he was ready to go back with his mother. Unexpectedly, the old man with white hair walked up and bowed to the princess, then pointed to Yang Chen and said, "Princess, that kid almost injured the young prince just now. Do you want to take him back?" End of this chapter. 9, Chapter 9.10 My surname is Yang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9:10. My surname is Yang. Yang Kong came out this time with 3 experts, one of whom was the thousand-handed man who slaughtered Peng Lianhu before. There is also this white-haired old man named Shenxian Lao Guai Liang Ziwang, and another one is the burly Tibetan monk, a spiritual master who previously worked with Liang Ziwang to save Peng Lianhu. Liang Ziwang's inquiry really caused trouble for the queen. Although she has a noble status, she is only a talented woman. Fortunately, the queen was kind-hearted after all, so she said, "Anyway, Konger hasn't been injured, let's just forget about it." Lingji Venerable walked up and said, "Forget it, how can we forget it? It's okay if we're knocked down. The young prince was almost shot to death just now. If we let him go, wouldn't it be a loss of reputation for the Zhao prince's mansion? Just now, he teamed up with Liang Ziwang to block Peng Lianhu, and his arms still feel very sore and numb. Now that the queen has arrived, how can we not take the opportunity to seek revenge?" Ah! The princess was shocked and quickly lifted the soft sedan curtain, looking at her son. Seeing that Yang Kang's face had not improved, she finally felt relieved. On one side of the princess's concern for her son, another person jumped out of the crowd and shouted, "You monk, why do you speak so indistinguishable from right and wrong?" When everyone heard the sound, they saw that the person coming was a middle-aged Taoist, dressed in a grey Taoist robe, holding a brush in his hand, looking like a virtuous person. The spiritual master pointed to the Taoist and asked, "Who are you?" The person didn't answer, brushed the dust, took a step forward with his left foot, and then withdrew his foot. There was a deep imprint left on the ground, almost a foot deep. He casually extended his foot and stepped, leaving such a deep mark, indicating that his footwork was indeed impressive. Lingji Venerable, who had just ventured into the Central Plains, couldn't recall which expert he was from. Instead, Liang Ziwang exclaimed in surprise, "Is Taoist master the real person of Yuyang Prince, who is known as the Iron Foot Immortal?" The humanitarian said, "I am Wang Chui, and the word real person cannot be taken lightly. Yuyangzi Wang Chui is one of the 7 sons of Chuanzhen's sect and has a good reputation in the martial arts world. Wang Chui is also a renowned hero in Hebei and Shandong with his iron foot skills." Upon hearing the name Wang Chui, Ong Kong couldn't help but feel uneasy and said, "Even if it's Wang Jinren in front of him, it's inconvenient to use swordsmanship again. If only I wasn't injured, let's just forget about it." Then he said to the queen, "Mom, let's go back to the palace." Okay. The princess was very happy and nodded repeatedly. Without waiting for others to speak, Yang Kong stepped onto the steed led by the servant, shook the reins, and left with the soft sedan chair of the queen. Liang Ziwang and the spiritual master exchanged a glance, and had no choice but to lift the injured Peng Lianhu and follow him. In the blink of an eye, a farce came to an end, and the people around immediately dispersed as soon as they saw that it was no longer lively. Wang Chui brushed the dust and placed it on his left arm, clasping his fists and bowing, you all have manners. Yang Chen and Guo Jing, except for Huang Rong, all bowed and clasped their fists, saying, Wang Zhenren. Wang Chu walked up to Guo Jing and reached out to press his shoulder, saying, your foundation is not bad. Who is your master? Originally, Wang Chui was watching from the side just now and saw that both Guo Jing and Yang Kong had a solid foundation in the martial arts of the Chuanjin sect. He thought they were disciples of the Chuanjin sect. Yang Kong used all the moves of his senior brother Qiu Chuji, and he should be his disciple. However, he didn't know how his senior brother, who has always been jealous of evil, would accept a prince of the Jin kingdom as his disciple. As for Guo Jing, although he had disciples of Chuanjin sect's internal skills, there was no trace of Chuanjin sect's martial arts in his moves, so he didn't know which sect he belonged to, so he asked. When Guo Jing was in Mongolia before, he had deceived Mei Chaofeng with Jiangnan Liuguai, Ma Yu, and others, so he knew that Ma Yu had a junior brother named Wang Chui. So he said truthfully, my master is the 7 heroes of Jiangnan, and Ma Zhenren, the son of Dan Yang, has also taught me my internal skills. Wang Chui once heard that Qiu Chuji had made a bet with the 6 monsters in Jiangnan, so he understood and said, ah, you are Guo Jing. Master brother has taught you martial arts, that's really great. I don't have any worries anymore. Guo Jing did not understand Wang Chui's meaning, indicating that he was not speaking and therefore did not ask further questions. Wang Chu walked up to Yang Chen and asked, do you know if this young master has a noble name? Young generation Yang Chen replied. Wang Chui sighed and said, you really have the surname Yang. I've heard about the Yang family's marksmanship, but unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to see it. Today, one of them is indeed well deserved. It seems that Yang Gongzi is the legitimate and authentic Yang family gun. Yang Chen nodded and said, it's indeed an ancestral marksmanship. The king nodded in understanding, but Mui walked over and asked, young Master Yang, do you think this is an ancestral marksmanship? I wonder which ancestor passed it down. Yang Chen replied, I, the Xuanzu, am Yang Gong's taboo for revival. My family's marksmanship has been passed down from his family. Ah. Mu Yi was surprised and quickly asked, what is your father's name? My father Yang Ming, do you know a senior? Mu Yi suddenly burst out laughing, ha ha ha, it's him, indeed it's him. He smiled and suddenly shed a few tears. Seeing his father suddenly laughing, Mu Nianzi felt a little worried and quickly walked up to him with a worried expression, asking, Dad, are you okay? Mu Yi patted his daughter's hand and comforted, saying, Dad is okay, this is happy. Then he turned to Yang Chen and continued, where is your dad now? Yang Chen's face darkened and he said in a deep voice, my father passed away 8 years ago. Do seniors know my father? Mu Yi's mouth slightly opened, but he remained silent for a long time before murmuring, he passed away, how could it be? Your father should be in his prime now. My father happened to be in a state of war in his early years, injuring his lungs. 8 years ago, his old injury recurred, but there was no medicine to cure it. In the end. Hey, speaking of which, Yang Chen also sighed from the bottom of his heart. Although he was a traveler, he and his father had been living together for more than 10 years. The father-son relationship was extremely deep, and he was also deeply saddened by his father's death. How could it be? On the other side, Mu Yi had not yet regained his senses, but kept sighing somewhere. At this moment, the snow was getting heavier and heavier. Huang Rong said, it's not convenient to talk here, why don't we find a place to talk? Great. Wang Chu praised and said. So Guo Jing helped pack the banner and weapons, and then Mu Nianzi supported Mu Yi as they walked towards a nearby inn. The 5 of them found a table and sat down. Mu Nianzi brought his father a cup of tea, and at this moment, Mu Yi also calmed down. Hey, I didn't expect to find out today that my older brother and I can't see each other again. Yang Chen looked puzzled and asked, Senior, what do you mean? Actually, my surname is not Mu, but Yang. My original name was Yang Tiexin, Mu Yi said in a gentle tone. End of this chapter. 10, Chapter 10, 11. You're really amazing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10-11. You are still very nice. Mu Yi's words made Wang Chu exclaim in surprise, are you Yang Tiexin? Because he heard Qiu Chuji talk about the old affairs of the Guo and Yang families, he knew Yang Tiexin. Mu Nianxi was also very surprised, but as for Guo Jing, his face was full of doubts, because although his family had a great relationship with the Yang family, neither Li Ping nor the 7 eccentrics of Jiangnan had mentioned it in the past decade. Yang Tiexin said, yes, my original name was Yang Tiexin, but I am the great-grandson of Yang Gong. Yang Gong here is naturally Yang Zixing. Then he said to Yang Chen, your father and I are brothers, but we got separated later. Has your father ever told you? Yang Chen nodded and replied, my late father did mention it, but it's a sad matter for him. I didn't ask much, so there won't be any chance to ask later. Your father's birthday is July 13th. When our family separated, he had just passed his 12th birthday and I was only 7 years old. Has your father ever said this? I did mention it. When Yang Ming mentioned this, Yang Chen was also exactly 12 years old. At that time, he said, when we separated, I happened to be at your age. My younger brother was only 7 years old. Just mention it. Yang Tiexin nodded, but these were still not enough to win people's trust. So he said a few more executions, which are the differences between the authentic Yang family gun and the circulating version in the martial arts world. The Yang family's marksmanship has been passed down from generation to generation, and it is difficult for outsiders to know such details. This alone is enough to prove the relationship between Yang Tiexin and Yang Chen's uncle and nephew. Yang Chen bowed and said, uncle is here, please accept my nephew's bow. Yang Tiexin exclaimed with great joy, good child, get up quickly. Then he supported Yang Chen's hands and said, when I saw you, I thought of my brother. Why did he just go like that? Yang Chen felt Yang Tiexin's arms trembling uncontrollably, and at the same time, a few tears dripped onto his arm. It seemed that although Yang Tiexin was happy on the face, he was still sad in his heart. Yang Tiexin tightly grasped Yang Chen's palm for a long time before releasing it. He turned back to Mu Nianxi and said, Niener, come and pay your respects to brother Yang Chen. Then he turned his head and said, I forgot to ask, Chener, how old are you this year? Yang Chen said, uncle, this year is exactly 20. Yang Tiexin said to Mu Nianxi, 20, that's big brother right? Mu Nianxi took a few steps forward, smiled and said, I've seen brother Yang Chen. Good girl, please wake up quickly, Yang Chen said, holding her hands weakly, all right. All right. Wang Qi suddenly burst out laughing, then stroked the 3 black beards under his jaw and said, today, it's a good thing for young brothers and nephews to recognize each other, but there's still one good thing that I have to say. Yang Tiexin asked, what other good thing is there? It's also a good thing for uncles and nephews to recognize each other. Wang Chu smiled and said to Guo Jing, Ong brothers probably didn't hear you clearly just now. Little brother, please say it again, what's your name? Guo Jing said, my name is Guo Jing. Previously, Wang Qi also asked about Guo Jing's name, and Guo Jing naturally answered. However, at that time, Yang Tiexin's thoughts were all focused on Yang Chen, so he did not hear it clearly. At this moment, when he heard Guo Jing say it again, Yang Tiexin's heart sounded like a thunderbolt. Yang Tiexin's voice trembled slightly, your name is Guo Jing. What is your father's name? Guo Jing replied, my father's name was Xiaotian. Mu Yi continued to ask, your mother's surname is Li, isn't it? Guo Jingqi said, it's Li, Mu. How do you know, Uncle Yang? Wang Chu laughed and said, brother Yang, there's no need to ask anymore. This is your sworn brother Guo Xiaotian's son. However, Yang Tiexin felt sad and burst into tears in an instant. Heaven has treated me so poorly. I separated from my elder brother in the early years, lost my sworn brother in middle age, and my wife and children have all left me. After many years of wandering, I have seen the son of an old friend, but I cannot see him again. Wang Chu had a stiff smile on his face and could only say to Yang Tiexin, Brother Yang, we mourn. Mu Nianzi also patted Yang Tiexin's back and whispered, Dad, don't be sad. This side was filled with palpitations, and Guo Jing was also affected by this emotion. His eyes were a bit moist, but in reality, he was still confused and couldn't figure it out. After Yang Tiexin's emotions calmed down a bit, Guo Jing couldn't help but ask, Uncle Yang, do you know your late father? Huang Rong said on the side, You silly kid, can't you hear me? Your father is the sworn brother of Uncle Yang. Yang Tiexin asked, Didn't your mother tell you? Guo Jing shook his head. Wang Chui also said, Have you never mentioned the 7 heroes of Jiangnan? Guo Jing still shook his head. Originally, Li Ping was an illiterate woman who didn't even know her husband's name before. It was only after learning from the 7 monsters of Jiangnan that Guo Jing found out her father's name was Guo Xiaotian. The original work really wrote this way, so Li Ping didn't mention anything about her family to Guo Jing, only mentioning an enemy named Duan Tianda. The Jiangnan 7 monsters thought that Li Ping could speak, and Li Ping thought that the Jiangnan 7 monsters could speak, resulting in Guo Jing not knowing anything. Seeing this situation, Yang Tiexin talked to everyone about his past with the Guo family 18 years ago, and shared his experiences after escaping, including the adoption of Mu Nianzi. Yang Chen asked, So uncle has been searching for his aunt's whereabouts in various places for years? Yeah. Wang Chui suddenly sighed and said, Ah, I missed it. Brother Yang, you missed it. After a pause, he continued, Senior brother Chiu has found Madame Ling in Ling Lang, and has taken Ling Lang as his disciple. Yang Tiexin couldn't believe it, Ah. Is it really true? Wang Chu said, Can there be any falsehood? Guo Jing also said, That's true. Previously, Taoist Zhou Chuji sent senior brother Yin Jiping to the grassland to deliver a letter. The letter said that he visited Yang Junzi 9 years ago, and this Yang Jun should be you, Uncle Yang. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone stared at him in amazement. Guo Jing felt a little palpitated when he was seen and asked, Am I speaking correctly? Due to their status, it was difficult for everyone to answer, but Huang Rong ignored them and said, You didn't say anything wrong, but nobody expected you to have such wisdom. It was Guo Jing, who didn't notice the teasing in Huang Rong's words. Instead, he smirked and scratched his head, asking, Are you praising me? Huang Rong felt embarrassed when she asked this question, but casually said, I guess so. Huang Rong should be the first person to praise Guo Jing's intelligence. Guo Jing said happily, You're quite a good person. Yeah. Huang Rong said lightly. The exchange between these two people also eased the atmosphere a lot. Yang Tiexin asked Wang Chui, Do you know where my wife and children are now? Wang Chu shook his head and said, I don't know about this poor Taoist, but senior brother Chiu will be coming to Zhongdu soon. You can ask him then. End of this chapter.